Do you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share with us? Send us an email with your story for a chance of it being featured on Weird World. On the evening of January the 27th, 1977, an extraordinary encounter unfolded in the quiet town of Prospect, Kentucky, that would forever change the life of 19-year-old Lee Parrish. The case, thoroughly documented by investigators Don Elkins and Carla Rueckert, was initially brought to their attention through Lawrence Allison, a hypnotist who had previously collaborated with them on UFO-related investigations. It was Lee's mother, Mrs. Parrish, who first contacted Lawrence, driven by a mother's intuition that something unusual had befallen her son the previous night. Lee was a high school graduate and worked as a truck driver and general labourer for his family's business, Parrish Supply. He stood 6 feet tall with a sturdy build and presented himself as a quiet, polite young man of average intelligence. Those who interviewed him would later describe him as a common-sense type who appeared genuinely disturbed by his experience. His neat, casual appearance and straightforward demeanour lent additional credibility to the extraordinary account he would share. What began as a routine 7-minute drive home from his girlfriend's house would stretch into an inexplicable 45-minute encounter with something beyond human understanding. Just before 1 a.m. on that winter evening in 1977, Lee left the home of his girlfriend, Kathy Johnson, after watching television together. The weather conditions that night were cold and partly cloudy, with considerable snow blanketing the ground, though the roads remained relatively clear. Driving his 1970 Jeepster, equipped with a V6 engine, Lee headed west on Highway 329, approximately 4 miles from the US 42, when he encountered something that defied explanation. The object first appeared hovering just above the tree line, between 100 and 220 feet from the road, at an altitude of about 100 to 150 feet. Lee observed a perfectly rectangular craft, approximately 40 feet in length and 10 feet in height, emanating a bright flare reminiscent of the setting sun, but significantly more intense. A strange compulsion forced him to maintain his gaze upon the craft despite this overwhelming brightness. Fear gripped him, yet he found himself unable to flee the scene, losing conscious control of his vehicle, though he somehow maintained his course on the road. Approximately 15 seconds into the encounter, his car radio ceased functioning. As Lee's vehicle passed directly beneath the luminous craft, the object suddenly accelerated, first matching the speed of a standard jet aircraft before rapidly disappearing to the northwest, operating in complete silence throughout the entire encounter. Upon arriving home at 1:45 a.m., his mother immediately noticed something alarming about his appearance, asking, "What's wrong with your eyes?" A glance in the mirror revealed that the whites of his eyes had become entirely bloodshot, accompanied by significant pain that would persist throughout the evening. The true depth of this encounter would only emerge through subsequent investigations by researchers Don Elkins and Carla Rueckert, working in conjunction with hypnotist Lawrence Allison. Under careful hypnotic regression, Lee revealed the 38 minutes of his journey time unaccounted for during what should have been a brief 7-minute drive. During the regression session, Lee recounted that after the craft positioned itself overhead, it underwent a rapid sequence of colour changes, shifting from its initial fiery red to black, then to white. In the following moment, Lee found himself temporarily blinded, experiencing a peculiar sensation in his eyes. When his vision returned, he had been transported from his vehicle into a circular, self-luminous white room, approximately 20 feet in diameter, with a ceiling of equal height and dimensions that seemed to defy the craft's external appearance. Within this sterile chamber, Lee encountered 3 entities he instinctively recognized as sentient beings, though they bore no resemblance to any human or other animal form. These beings, which he described as machine-like in nature, consisted of what he termed a black one, a red one, and a white one. The black entity, towering the full height of the room at 20 feet, possessed a shape reminiscent of an army silhouette target, jug-like with a comparatively small head. Its surface displayed an irregular pattern of smooth and rough patches, and it wielded a single-jointed appendage without a hand. This being approached Lee, first touching his left side and back, inducing significant pain and a simultaneous feeling of hot and cold burning, accompanied by a vibrating sensation. The red one, smaller than Lee himself, exhibited a rectangular form he likened to a Coke machine. This entity, which Lee sensed was apprehensive about the interaction, approached with a single, handless, unjointed arm or probe, touching his shoulder and right temple. The contact felt like a needle insertion, causing a brief sting but minimal lasting discomfort. Throughout this examination, Lee noted both a persistent chill in the air and a rocking motion within the craft, similar to a boat on the water. The third entity, the white one, stood at approximately 6 feet tall and maintained a central position in the room. Its blocky body supported a square head with a flat front face, sloping towards its body at a 45-degree angle when viewed in profile. This being, which emanated a consistent glow, remained stationary throughout the whole encounter. Despite its inaction, Lee understood it to be the leader of the group. Following the examinations, the red entity retreated towards the white one, either merging with it or moving behind it from Lee's perspective. The white entity then began producing a rhythmic sound, reminiscent of teeth brushing or sandpaper use. As the black entity also began withdrawing, Lee noticed the coldness in the air giving way to warmth. The white entity then moved towards the black one, either merging or disappearing behind it, leaving only the towering black entity visible. Moments later, the black entity vanished as well, leaving Lee alone in the white room. Without any conscious transition, Lee found himself back in his Jeepster, recognizing a familiar pond as he completed his journey home. The craft's departure was marked by 5 more seconds of radio malfunction, after which the UFO vanished from view. Curiously, the cigarette Lee had been smoking at the onset of the encounter had completely disappeared, and the following day, his Jeepster developed significant electrical system problems requiring extensive repairs. When questioned about the mechanism of transport between his vehicle and the craft, Lee provided intriguing details that had previously been unclear. He described how the red ship had caught his Jeep as he passed beneath it, comparing it to a mousetrap waiting for a mouse. The vehicle was suspended in a state which Lee described as not on the ship and not on the ground. His transfer into and out of the ship occurred without any physical opening of the Jeep's door, through some form of transformation or transportation process he couldn't fully explain. Upon his return, the Jeep remained suspended until he was safely inside, at which point it was lowered back to the road. The investigators were particularly interested in how the craft had initially appeared. Upon careful questioning, Lee could only conclude that it had materialized out of thin air, as the surrounding flat farmland offered no hills or other geographical features behind which it could have hidden. The rural setting, with its utility and telephone lines along Route 329 and a small pond nearby, provided no obvious explanation for the craft's sudden appearance. The validity of Lee's encounter gained additional credibility through a corroborating report from Dr. Burton Monroe, a zoology consultant to the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, or APRO, residing in nearby Anchorage, Kentucky, approximately 4 miles from the abduction site. According to Dr. Monroe, at approximately 10:30 p.m. that same evening, a neighbour had reported her children's frightened reactions to a large white disc-shaped object with a dome. Reviewing the physical evidence from the encounter revealed several notable traces that corroborated Lee's account. As previously detailed, his eyes suffered immediate effects that persisted throughout the following evening, causing particular discomfort when closed. His Jeepster experienced significant electrical system damage the day after the sighting, requiring extensive repairs, and the cigarette he had been smoking at the time of the first sighting had inexplicably vanished. All of these physical traces adding substantial weight to his testimony. Lee later revealed that this wasn't his first brush with unexplained phenomena. He acknowledged a long-standing interest in UFOs, having read at least one book on the subject during his high school years, which he believed was simply titled UFO. His interest extended to psychic phenomena, and he recounted several peculiar experiences, including an incident witnessed by his girlfriend Kathy Johnson, where he allegedly caused an unplugged outdoor light to activate. While he had also witnessed UFOs on several previous occasions, he noted that he had always been accompanied by others during these sightings. This led him to believe that the entities had specifically waited for a moment when he was alone to make contact, suggesting they had some prior knowledge of or interest in him specifically. The phenomenon appeared to run in the family, as Mrs. Parrish had also experienced several UFO encounters. Her most memorable sighting involved a light that appeared behind their house one night, producing a distinctive sound that she likened to a sewing machine going full throttle. Throughout his regression, Lee expressed his belief that these beings were specifically interested in his chemical makeup and physical composition, suggesting they were studying his own personal physiology. Perhaps most notably, he maintained a conviction that this encounter would not be his last interaction with these mysterious entities. This incident, thoroughly documented by investigators Don Elkins and Carla Rueckert, stands as one of the most detailed and compelling cases of close encounter in ufological records. The case is particularly notable for its unusual descriptions of machine-like entities, the comprehensive physical effects experienced by both the witness and his vehicle, and the multiple layers of corroborating evidence from independent sources. The combination of physical evidence, witness testimony, and the documented history of UFO activity in both the immediate time frame and the witness's past make this case a significant entry in the annals of UFO research. The investigation was aided considerably by Lee's willingness to undergo hypnotic regression, though it's worth noting his initial hesitation. His concerns about hypnosis stem from having witnessed its misuse at a party, leading investigators Elkins and Allison to spend considerable time explaining the process and assuring him of his maintained autonomy throughout the session. This careful approach to the investigation, combined with Lee's clear desire to understand what had happened during his missing time, contributed significantly to the detailed nature of his account.